Welcome back, friends. You're just in time for the Johnny Brew Show.
What's going on, everybody? My name is John Brookhagen, host of the Johnny Brew Show, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Johnny Brew Show. Welcome to Red Wave 22, which is the new moniker of the Johnny Brew Show, as, of course, we're covering culture, politics, medicine, education, and a lot. But we are going to be highlighting a lot of conservative candidates as we realize that our country is falling apart. And we're going to be introducing ourselves to anybody and everybody from local to statewide to federal elections. And we're going to give you the, unapologetic conservative ideas of what's going on. Not necessarily Republican, but just a love for our founding documents, small government domestically, and of course, America first internationally. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about. And we've been looking for assembly candidates. We have, I think there's 34 different assembly districts or actually 42 different assembly districts. And I think it's something like 20 something of them still do not have a conservative candidate running in them. So we need to get people excited because we need candidates. Even if it's a blue district where we know that Democrats have a 20-point advantage, we still need the data. So please, people, if you're looking to run or you're interested in getting more involved, look up Common Sense Nevada. That's the public square. And we're always looking for people to watch polls, to be precinct captains, to run for office, make phone calls, knock on doors. There's plenty you can be doing to help turn Nevada red. And we're going to need all the help we can get because we now have legalized mail-out voting, not so much boating, we're losing water in Lake Mead by the day, as well as legalized ballot harvesting, which we're going to be talking about with our next guest. His name is Dr. Jon Petrick. Yes, easy for you to say. And here's an ad from Dr. Jon Petrick announcing his campaign. Play tape.
Tracks. They're made of cold, hard American steel. And they were built by hand with grit, determination, and backbone, just like Nevada. One rail is liberty, and the other is freedom, and the Constitution is the railroad ties that hold them together. But every day, our freedoms are being derailed, and it's sad what's happening to our state. Our streets are filthy, our taxes are out of control, and our education ranks 48th of 50.
It's time for us to get the train back on the rails, because if we do, we will carry a payload of positivity, prosperity, and protecting our rights along the way. Hello, my name is Dr. Jon Petrick, and I'm running for Assembly District 21. And I am not a politician, but what I am is a concerned citizen. I can no longer sit back while the same old establishment politicians push forward bad policies and take away our rights. I stand for the Constitution, the Nevada worker, and I believe it is time that we bring back honor and integrity to the Nevada Assembly. And I refuse to accept the fake, phony media narrative. It is not who I am and it's not who we are. I'm tired of our so-called leaders that are obviously out of touch with everyday people like you and me. And I will never let anyone tell me or my family what to do with our bodies. I'm not just fighting for my family, I'm also fighting for yours. We are at a critical time in our country. And if we don't keep our train on the track, we're going to lose our freedoms forever. I'm Dr. Jon Petrick. Join me and jump on that Liberty train to Carson City and let me be your voice.
This ad was paid for by the committee to elect Dr. Jon Petrick.
So, there you go. Without further ado, candidate for Assembly District number 21, Dr. Jon Petrick. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've been doing my homework on you, and I think through that homework, I've realized that you probably got more experience on camera than I do myself, so...
You know what? I've been for almost 15, 16 years affiliated with the UFC on their TV show. So
right, and I also saw you had a Ask Dr. John TV show. Is that similar to like a Dr. Phil thing?
No, actually, it kind of started after the show had ended, the UFC show. They kind of took a hiatus, and I needed something to do. And there were so many interesting people that I was meeting along the way. They had some really awesome stories, and I thought, man, these just need to be told.
Right.
And I had some connections, and I had the
So you pitched it,
and it was good. We did about 300 interviews, I think, over time.
And we're gonna get into all that. The first thing I want to this campaign ad. The first half was so bad. The second half is great, seeing you out in the community. The first half looks like every other Nevadan candidate. You know, you're out in the desert. I mean, no pickup truck. You're not carrying a gun. But, I mean, you know, it was, you know, with the railroad and everything. Is that just what you have to do? I've never run. Well, so if I run, am I going to have that?
No, the truth is that when you're trying to put together a campaign video, you need to put together something that's going to resonate with the people. I'm a constitutionalist. I understand the mechanism of the railroad in regards to truly one train is liberty or one rail is liberty, the other rail is freedom, and the Constitution is what holds them together. And that's, to me, that was kind of what the image we wanted to get across to people, is that our country is on those rails. And right now, just look at every single category, John. Everything is just screwed up. And even in our local communities, you know, what we're seeing. So it was one of the things we wanted to illustrate was, look, let's pay attention. And a train is solid, and a train is moving. And if it's on the right track, it's great. And if it's on the wrong track, it's catastrophic. So.
Well, you know, I actually probably didn't give you enough credit because you are experienced in TV and stuff like that. So you had more creative input than the typical person who just says, oh, you know, tells a campaign company, oh, can you cut me an ad? And they just cut you the regular one. You were involved in the decision to use railroads and the scenery and what pictures.
Absolutely. That's in our, obviously that's our local trains. You know, these are things that what we want to do, capture there. We want to stay real. Authenticity is the key to everything. I will tell you that when we decided to run for office, one of the main things that we did, John, was say authenticity is our currency. Everything we have to do is stay authentic. So we wanted to have local trains. We wanted to have something. And people don't, even like the truckers now, people don't realize that the truckers and the people on the trains, they're the ones that are carrying our cargo. There's our supply chain.
Right.
So it's kind of ironic that, you know, the trains and the trucks and the things that are going on there. And that's kind of the message you wanted to get. You know, kind of the good old-fashioned blue-collar kind of worker. That's
and I like it better now that you break it down for me. It doesn't just sound like another, you know, campaign ad. You actually grew up in Missouri. You didn't move to Vegas until 2000. Now, you've been here for 21, 22 years. I think that almost, you know, makes you a local as far as being a pretty transitory place. But tell me about before you moved to Vegas. You grew up in Missouri. When were you born? When did you graduate high school?
Actually, I was born in Swickley, Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Right.
I lived there, which is right outside of Pittsburgh.
Right.
In case people don't know really where Swickley is, it's a wonderful place. We lived out in
the country.
They
do the U.S. Open in golf there.
Yes, absolutely.
Which one is that called?
There's plenty.
What's the big golf course there, just outside of Pittsburgh by Duquesne?
Fort Duquesne, yeah. I'm not sure the name of the course there, but I do know.
It'll come to me halfway through the answer. In a half hour, I'm going to shout out the answer.
So I was from Pittsburgh, right?
Right,
so
Western PA.
Shout out Western PA, and then we moved to Columbus, Ohio, and I lived there until I ended up finishing high school.
And that's not as far as it sounds, Columbus, Ohio, and Western
3 hours,
Pennsylvania.
3 hour drive. It's actually 180 miles door to door from where we live to Columbus, and then.
It's like us going to Bakersfield.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Exactly. And then Columbus was a great city. I enjoyed it. And then I was going to go out to Colorado, Grand Junction, moved out there. I was going to play tailback.
So you were a football player.
I wrestled.
So tell me about high school. You played sports. Were you a good student? What was your favorite subject? Did you play music?
No, I was an athlete. We played back in the day. We were outside all the time, so we had all sports. We played baseball, we played soccer, we played football. I wrestled, I ran track. We were outside
playing manhunt, kill the guy with the ball, dodgeball,
absolutely, all that stuff. And as far as school is concerned, at a young age, my parents were at least savvy enough to realize that I wasn't reading like the other kids, though. I was struggling a little bit.
Right.
So they would take me to a place called the Laughlin Center in Swickley, Pennsylvania, and we would go there and I would read. And I remember listening to my instructor at that time reading, and then me trying to read and go, man, I'm not reading the same thing they're reading. So it was at that time I had realized I had a struggle with reading. So as far as a student was concerned, I tried like hell. I certainly did. But I had dyslexia. So it wasn't until later on that I actually learned how to... It wasn't a disability; it was a superpower, and I learned how to control it.
Really? Well, you became a doctor, so I mean,
absolutely.
I guess you got to do some reading to become a doctor.
I just happened to read a lot more than most people because I wasn't comprehending it.
Right. So you needed more practice.
But there's a whole, that's the dyslexia thing is actually something that's very, very, it's happening right now in our country based upon the fact that our education is so poor. And a lot of people don't know why.
Right.
And you being in math and in education, you understand that fundamentally we went from one type of teaching to another type of teaching. So now you see dyslexia is now rampant.
Right. And a lot of
really,
times I'll talk to my kids about stuff like 9 times 9 or 9 squared, and they say 18. And then, of course, I think they're doing 9 times 2. But now I'm realizing that more and more of my students are thinking 81, but they're saying 18. You know, and it happens a lot. For me, I used to have problems with 6 times 9. I used to always think it was 45. For some reason, getting those numbers mixed up. And, if I do have dyslexia, it's the most minor. Sometimes I think that these things like ADHD is more like height. How much do you have? We all have a touch of ADHD, or we all have a touch of not being able to pay attention. But some people are critical about it, and they can't concentrate.
I have my opinion on that, and I think, unfortunately, most of that goes back to money. I think if you were to look at when we switched from systematic phonics to whole language, which is, see Dick run down the road, see Jane jump over the fence. We went through this whole language garbage, and it really put us way behind. We went from 1 child in 1,000 being dyslexic with a 2.2% adult literacy rate to 250 to 300 kids with the now dyslexia,
right,
and a 42% adult literacy
So basically we helped half of the 2% get better with our new things, but we're losing
Everybody
20 to
knows.
30%
Yeah.
because of the new system.
And actually, we're not even gaining that because now there are more kids dyslexic.
Right.
And so that gets back to the ADHD. The young mind is a restless mind.
All
and
kids,
the attention span is so limited. So it really is kind of unique now that we're adding these other things like critical race theory. We're trying to do all of these things in a small window of opportunity for teachers.
To teach them how to
We've
multiply.
already changed
Right.
the way that the brain learns and went to some sort of garbage now.
Right.
And now we're expecting kids, and because they're not capable. We take an education. We're taking gym out of schools, PE, all this stuff that got rid of that nervous energy,
right,
and allowed them to have an improved attention span. We remove, and now we're labeling these kids. And if we label them, now there are different programs that schools are paid upon,
right,
based upon how many kids they have with a disability.
And then you even talk about COVID. You lock a kid up in his room for 2 years, and then he's stir crazy, and he's got ADHD. Well,
right.
Maybe he needs some fresh air,
Fresh air. We are by nature, we're energy. We all have an energy field around us. We're energy people. We're herd animals instinctually, and by design. It's ironic that they say that globe or aura around us is about 6 feet. Well, how far they want us to stay apart? They want to break that connection that we have. And the worst was for the children because they're impressionable. So now they had to leave the impressions from their families, and they had to leave that. Now they're on their phones in their room.
Right. And we're forced to be verbally expressive. I always say on the show how, I got to hello, as opposed to just a smile and a nod because I'm wearing a mask and nobody can see each other. So and people just don't have the energy to give big hello. So we're turning into a much less social society.
Absolutely.
And people are less responsible for their actions because everybody's anonymous.
Yeah, everybody. Well, now you got these keyboard heroes. Everybody's a tough guy behind the keyboard,
right,
and everybody has what they would do. And that's one of the things running for office. It's like you got to stop the talk. Right. It's like really sometimes put your boots on the ground, get working, but stop the talk. And they get behind the keyboards, and everybody's got an idea, and everybody's got a solution, but they're not wanting to action item it.
So you were a running back, and what other sports did you play?
Wrestling.
And which one were you better at?
I would probably which one that I liked the most was football. I loved wrestling. It was more it was more me.
A workout and
it was a workout.
More personal, intrinsic.
Yeah, there was. I gained something from wrestling that I think that is a perspective that I carry with me my whole life. And that was when Dan Gable was a wrestler. He was a big-time Iowa guy, and I had gone to a wrestling camp, and Dan was there. And I remember I had gone out.
Was he the guy who won 4 years in a row? He went undefeated for 4 straight years?
It's Cale Sorensen.
All right. Dan I remember Iowa. That's like the best wrestling school there is, right?
Chael Sorensen, it was his name. The kid's great. He's still he's a coach somewhere, I forget where. But Dan Gable had this awesome wrestling camp, and I remember I went to the camp, and I was successful. I pinned the kid in a minute and a half.
Right.
I came off the mat and had my headgear on, and one of the coaches was there, and Dan came up and said, what'd you do right, what'd you do wrong, and what do you work on? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just pinned the kid. But he's like, you shot too far away.
Right.
Even though I was successful, there were things I could have done to be better.
Right.
And so now, even with my daughter, I'm like, what'd you do right, what'd you do wrong, and what are we going to work on? And it breaks it down for us pretty simply. And so I've carried that with me in everything that I do every day.
And it's funny, a coach says something to you that you're saying, what are you even talking about? And then when you realize what they're talking about, it becomes a mantra, something that you use for the rest of your life because it was so profound.
Well, because we're mentioning coaches, when I look back, John, the people that have the most impact in my lives have been teachers and coaches. Some of the most, it was actually Mrs. Campbell who taught me that having dyslexia wasn't a disability, it was a superpower. And my coaches, and Dan Gable was a coach that kind of inspired me. And when you look at Nevada sports, one of the things I'm learning as I'm really studying the issues, which I hope to get into, coaches haven't
Am I talking too much about your biography? You sound like
no. But coaches haven't been paid in Nevada. It's almost 17, 18 years since coaches have been paid. They make around $2,700 on the high end to be a full-time football coach. Whereas, look in Texas, they're paid $80,000. They don't teach a subject. So I'm not saying that
we need to pay them $80,000.
Well,
but
think about how influential they are to our kids. They teach our kids manners and character, and they teach you that it's not about winning and losing; it's winning and learning. And you shouldn't know whether that person's a champion by whether they won or lost, but how they characterize themselves on the field.
Right.
And we're taking away this, and it's like, how do you expect a coach to have an influence when you don't pay him? And remember, we're talking 4 and 5 practices every week.
And they're also going year-round unpaid because if you're not working year-round,
you're not competing.
You're not competing. And on that note, I did want to tell everybody, some of my former players and some great coaches from Spring Valley High School, both the men and the women have made Nevada State Finals. I think they're in the Final Four, both teams, and that's where I'm going to be pulling. For Spring Valley High School, Coach Blair for the men and Coach Hemberger for the women. And of course, anybody who played for me, show up. It's time to get to work. But I'm really very proud of these kids. Yeah. So then you finished your schooling. You went to what school did you get your doctorate in?
Mesa State in Grand Junction, Colorado. Then I kind of traveled around a little bit. I went to, my parents owned a company in San Diego, so I went down there. I was going to help run the company. My dad, that was my stepfather. He was a Colonel Marine Corps, he was a pilot. He said, hey, look, we actually opened up a franchise of an extermination company in San Diego. And my dad didn't want to kill bugs. So he's like, son, I got to be in the sky. So he was an original member of Top Gun. He was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam.
Really?
A true stud.
Can't he be a crop sprayer or something? You know what I mean? He could kill bugs and fly planes.
He did, but he got picked up by Warren Buffett. And so he flew for Signature Airlines, which was private jet. So he wanted to do, which, coming from where he wasn't going to pass that up. So at that time, it was like, do you want to stay in the extermination business or do you want something else?
And you want to catch rats or you want to fly Warren Buffett around the globe?
Right. So he said, he kind of gave me the option. I appreciated the opportunity. And I said, I really do want to do something more. I moved to Arizona. Long story short, I was injured in a car accident on Halloween. I was in a car with a drunk driver. She went off the road. I hit the roll bar of the Jeep, was thrown from the Jeep, and then it really started, it was a change.
Right. I saw some of your story. This is somewhat what led you into getting into medicine. How old were you when this happened?
Right around 23 years old.
And what year is this?
1993, 94.
Gotcha. So you got into a really bad car accident, and you were pretty messed up.
Yeah, I was an athlete, and all of a sudden now I can't hold a chicken wing without my, or a glass of water without my hand shaking. I had foot drop, where my foot was flapping like Daffy Duck, and I had been to several different doctors and chiros and neurologists, and I know I wasn't getting better, and I had gone to a couple of doctors, and like, hey, you may end up having to live with this, and
you're a 24-year-old kid,
and I'm coming out of my head going, there's no way, this isn't the life I want to live, and then literally one of my people sat next to me and said, hey, you check out this doctor, and I had been so many of them.
Another doctor, right.
But she said, just trust me. If you go, he won't even charge you if he can't fix you.
Right.
I went to him, and the guy looked like William Baldwin. He had people sitting in his waiting room. That soon he walked in, they hugged him, and then within 9 months he had me back, and I felt great. And I went, wow, it's not what I want to do. I want to be that. I mean, he was
Right.
a cool dude. His patients loved him. He made a ton of money. He loved what he was doing. So I went to him and I just said, hey, I need a mentor. Would you be interested in helping me? And we became friends, and he inspired me. His name is Dr. James Atkins. He owns some major centers in Phoenix, Arizona still. And he said, yep, I'll help you get in. I went to Kansas City, Missouri.
And learn from him.
And that's where I went. No, he was in Arizona. I went to school in Cleveland Chiropractic College, which is in Missouri.
Right.
And that's where I went to did my chiropractic college.
Amazing. And then you moved to Vegas in 2000.
In 2000.
And why did you move to Vegas?
At that time, my mom, and my stepfather moved here so my dad could fly out of Signature right by on the Strip, if you know where the Harley Davidson is.
Right behind it. Maverick helicopter,
Yep.
Sundance helicopter,
Right there.
since went out of
Yep,
business.
Absolutely. We were there. So they moved here in 97, 98, and I was traveling back and forth. I was looking at possibly going to Sacramento, trying to get a job with the Kings. I was looking at University of Texas to maybe work with the college down there. And then I came here to visit my parents one time and never had Vegas on my radar, to be honest.
Right.
And my mom's like, what the hell are you looking for? And I'm like, well, you know what? I want good weather. I want to be around family. I want a place where my pro athletes could come and visit me. I want to have a niche. And and she says, that sounds like Vegas. And I was like, okay, you got me. And she just really twerked me because on the plane ride home, I was like, oh my God, this is
Right.
Vegas is going to be it. So that was in 98, 99. In 99, I graduated. In 2000, I was here. And I have never been happier any place I've ever lived at any time in my life.
Beautiful.
Vegas has treated me incredibly well. The opportunities, John, have been like, I pinched myself from where I came from.
Right.
Humble, modest, blue-collar family to what I've been allowed to do and accomplish is nothing but
So how does that work then? You moved to Vegas and you opened up a chiropractor clinic, or did you work for somebody, or how did you get started in medicine?
I had an opportunity to work with some professional athletes. That doctor, that was my mentor, had a skill set. I wanted to learn that skill set, but I realized not only a handful of doctors actually had it. It's a soft tissue thing called active release techniques. I wanted to learn it. I went to college and I said, hey, you got to go somewhere else in addition to this. And I said, that's okay. I did. And it was a niche. And I had started working with some doctors who work with the Giants. I started working with some doctors who work with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
And, a lot of these guys were some of the best in the business. And so when I moved here, I had already had kind of a professional athlete following. So from, you name it. I mean, I've been so blessed to treat almost 4,000 pro athletes in 22 years, a little bit longer. So when I moved here, I worked with the Toronto Blue Jays. They were the 51s. So I worked for them for 8 years, strength and conditioning and chiropractic work I did with them and active release. And then right around 2004, 2005, I got a great opportunity to work for one of the best organizations in the world, and that was the UFC.
And they're in Vegas. You were looking for professional sports.
Right.
I mean, here's some. I mean, while you're talking, watching video,
Yeah.
it looks like you were helping somebody with their mobility or something.
This is actually this is kind of a proprietary thing. This is obviously this patient is he's unconscious. The gentleman standing above me. I'm the guy moving in the picture there. That's the anesthesiologist. This patient is unconscious, and he was suffering from what's known as adhesive capsulitis or frozen shoulder. So I actually have to pry that free and get it moving. You can do this when the patient's not unconscious, but the pain, they call it the suicide condition because the pain is so great. They almost have zero range of motion. They want to take their life. It's so horrible.
Right, and in order to heal, you need to move it, but to move it hurts so bad you want to kill yourself.
You want to kill yourself. It's terrible. So this right now is active release, which what we're doing here is we're actually shortening the tissue, taking a contact, lengthening the tissue, and it's breaking free underneath.
Oh.
So he started with almost no range of motion, and by the end of this video, you'll see we got almost 100% range of motion.
Does he wake up sore or inflamed?
Sore. He feels like it's like he worked out a lot.
Right.
A lot of the once
but
it's
not like
free,
it would be if he was awake.
No, if he was awake, he wouldn't. None of this would accomplish like this. It's horrific pain. If you ever look it up and you ever see a testimonial of someone that's got frozen shoulder, they're going to tell you. Look, one woman said, "I've been kicked by a mule. I was stabbed in the back and shot in the leg, and frozen shoulder was the worst thing ever happened to me."
Right.
It's just that bad.
That bad.
And the interesting thing is, and I'm tooting my own horn, but that particular technique, the active release, the name on itself means a person has to be a participant.
Right.
Well, when you're unconscious, you can't be. So didn't kind of violate the brand there because they're unconscious. But no other active release provider in the world does this with the patient's unconscious. So I have a really unique skill set. No one else does this particular technique but me.
Right.
I wish there were. So in 2000,
so that therefore people are flying in to
all
see
over.
you.
We get them from all over, and I want to teach this. This is what's going to happen in kind of my in my spare time.
You sound like me. You got a lot going on.
Love it, love it. I'm busy all the time, John.
Right.
I really that's life, man. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I'll give you a number. You're a math guy.
Yes, sir.
29,200. Right. That's how many days you get on this planet if you live to be 80. And Kobe Bryant couldn't buy more. Steve Jobs couldn't buy more. So I teach my daughter and anybody around me, don't waste one of them. You're allowed to have a bad hour, but you can't give a whole day away for being miserable. You got to find something to be positive in that day.
Sounds like I tell my kids, you got 18 years to learn everything. Whether you're on COVID protocol or you're sick or the school is closed, your 18 years are ticking by.
That's right.
And how much are you going to learn before you become an adult?
Yep. So for me, I much like you said, I'm busy. I like to be busy, and I love people. You know, so it's like it was an easy transition. You know, as a physician, John, 22 years ago, I took an oath. I mean, I'm gonna love everybody. I don't care your color, your skin. I don't care who you lay next to in bed. I don't care. I don't care your nationality. I don't care about any of that. I took an oath to love you and to do my very best. And if I'm a competitor, I always want to compete. And I learned that good doctors talk about success, but great doctors talk about failure. It's the patients we can't fix that haunt me. It's the patients that I over the years when I look back, and if I just could have given one more, so that haunts me.
Right.
So for me, when I took that oath, it meant something. So when I decided to run for office, you wanted me to read my school books, my medical books. Well, you want me to read the Constitution too.
Right.
So I'm surprised at how many candidates
don't
don't know the Constitution.
And that's something that I'm super upset about is the intellect of our leaders. I just feel like we're getting dumb. Like, not only are the schools getting dumber, but our leaders are getting dumber, and they're saying things that just don't make any common sense. And you look at them in the eye and you think you're either ignorant or evil. And then the more you listen to, you realize maybe they're not as evil as we thought. Maybe they are really just not able to.
Well, the Constitution of Nevada, I read it in a sound
It's
studio.
a lot longer than the Constitution of the United States.
It took me 9 hours, John.
Holy
and
cow.
I don't expect anybody out there to listen to me for 9 hours reading the Constitution. I did it
Right.
because as a legislator, I wanted the
It's your
library
responsibility.
and catalog. Well, one, it's my responsibility that you know right now, everybody, one of my constituents knows I read it.
Right.
Okay? Now
I printed it out.
There you go.
I didn't
But
quite read it yet, but I did print it out.
It's a lot of words, man. There was
Right.
sometimes, I think one of them, it was like the amendments of the amendments of the amendments can be ratified if the amendments of the amendments of the amendments is done. Oh my! Like we had like 13 times in like 3 sentences.
And you need to have like one of those war maps with the strings. This amendment, amended,
Absolutely.
amended.
Absolutely. But here's the great thing about it. Remember, I already told you I'm dyslexic. At 48, during all this COVID nonsense, being a physician, being common sense, being around other medical physicians in other countries because of my professional athlete base, I knew something was amiss. So I said, well, what are my rights on this? What are my HIPAA rights as a doctor? How do I protect my HIPAA rights of my patient so I don't have to violate them? You want me to put a mask on them? What if they have a cardiovascular disease?
Or Nuremberg.
How am I going to tell them, you got to wear a mask, even though you got a cardiovascular condition, right? So I started studying the Constitution. I hired a private tutor. My cousin who ran for governor of North Carolina, he's a constitutionalist.
You have a cousin that ran for governor in North Carolina?
Yeah, on the Constitutional Party. He wasn't successful because there was a Republican, Democrat, and then the Constitutional
Right.
Party. He had to get 2% of the vote to get him on the ballot, which they were successful in doing.
Right.
So every Sunday for weeks on end, John, we were studying, and I mean, he drilling me and learning the words. And I fell in love with American literature as a dyslexic. All these years it took me to fall in love with the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And I started to realize that words do matter, like happiness. This is a great one. For the viewers out there tuning into the show, what does happiness mean to you? What does it mean to you, John, or me? But let me tell you what it meant to the forefathers. It meant your ability to change your state in life. That meant if you were a janitor, you could be president. Or if you were president, you could be a janitor. And that's what it meant, happiness. So specifically, there was no speculation. It wasn't subjective. It specifically meant the pursuit of the ability to change your state in life. but people don't read it, so therefore they give ambiguous terms. Or people will tell me things like, well, clearly written in the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, there's a separation of church and state. And I'm like, where?
Right.
Where?
Right. That was an essay penned by Thomas Jefferson about an opinion. Like it wasn't anything official.
The truth is what they're, again, like the media was doing way back then.
Right.
They're doing it now. What they did was Thomas Jefferson said that in order to have a just society, you needed to have Christianity as a backbone.
And they don't leave that part out.
That's right. And 17 times our Supreme Court has ruled that we're a Christian nation. There's no speculation.
Right.
But the point was that Thomas Jefferson was saying is that we do not want to have our tax dollars go to a church. Because now you have denominations.
Right.
And you don't want it to go to a Protestant or
and
a
then
Catholic.
you have that church backing a candidate and giving them money.
Yeah, and then they just got rid of the Church of England. So they didn't want to fall back into it. Thomas Jefferson was very smart. And here's the thing. You know those how old the people that signed the Declaration of Independence were? Thomas Jefferson, when he signed it in 1776, was 33 years old.
Right. I mean, these are a bunch of kids who had differences of opinion, whether you're talking about Adams and Burr and Jefferson and
Absolutely.
Washington. I mean, these people had different ideas, and that's why sometimes as Republicans, we tend to fight with each other more because we all believe in the Constitution, but we all have, mine is the natural interpretation of what they meant, and you think, oh, well, no, this is what I, think they meant, and we're just fighting over dotting I's and crossing T's over the Constitution, but we're so passionate about it, we fight each other over it, just like, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams used to fight over it.
That's right.
But I'll tell you right now, I know John Adams and Thomas Jefferson both would not have a problem with the 10 Commandments being inside of a school building.
Absolutely not. I always ask this. This is the great thing. When someone says to me and they start bloviating and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they're like, the Bible this or the Constitution. I'm like, hey, fine. Let's take out the Bible and let's take out the Constitution. Then what?
Right.
What is your suggestion? What do you have as a guiding principle and a guiding foundation? I'd love to hear your idea.
Right. And without God, our morals are an opinion.
That's right. That's when you wonder why. You pull God out of everything and you wonder why our morality is gone. Well, it's because we're taking away the compass. Our true north is all over the map right now. No one knows what true north is.
Because we're losing our Christianity.
Absolutely.
And again, you don't have to... I hear people say that your conscience is actually the Holy Spirit. And that could be the case, that could not be the case, but we all know what's right and wrong. You know what I mean? There's something built into us. Where does that come from?
Well, look, this is a great small little story I saw on YouTube, and it showed a woman standing on a bus. And it didn't matter the nationality or the culture they were in. A man stood up and let her sit down. Who teaches that?
I do.
Right? I teach that, but I'm saying,
but not enough.
That act of kindness and gesture is something in every nationality, every culture. That care for your fellow human is typically what we have. You mentioned that the Republican Party.
I'm sorry.
You said you mentioned the Republican Party, we fight, and we divide. I believe that as Republicans in our moral compass, in our core values, we see the good in people. So a lot of times I think that we're asleep at the wheel or we're blindsided. It's not the punch that gets you, John, it's the one you don't see.
Right.
And I think Republicans have a tendency to really want to believe in the good in people. Where I'm
a cockeyed optimist. I know. People say stuff all the time to me like, unless they hurt me or unless I see them do something wrong, I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Only because people talk. And people who talk about other people, it gets a little too much sometimes. And if you only went by what people say, you couldn't have any friends because everybody's got a problem with somebody here or there.
You know what? One of the things I when I help coach, and you mentioned I do some coaching, I do some things, to help people. And I teach these young people, small minds talk about people, medium minds talk about things, and great minds talk about possibilities.
Or ideas,
Your
right.
checkup from the neck up is, where are you spending your time in that 24-hour period? If you're spending 6 hours talking about Sheila and Tommy and whatever, or your Porsche or your Prada purse, you're small-minded and medium-minded.
Right.
But if you're talking about ideas and possibilities and opportunities and how to advance,
how to make life better, how to make society better.
Those are the people I want to surround myself with. I'm very fortunate in that.
All right. Well, we went off on a couple tangents. I wanted to continue with your biography. You said you got, you love professional sports, but you loved Vegas, so you gave up the professional sports in order to stay home and call Vegas home. And next thing you know, UFC's, founded here in Vegas, or centralized here in Vegas. Of course, now we got the Raiders and we got the Knights and everything else. But this is you on a show that I used to watch back before I ever knew or ever heard of Dr. Jon Petrick. I didn't realize that I had seen you before, and it's you on the show that ran for something like 10, 12 seasons, Ultimate Fighter or something?
14 years I was on the show, so there was probably, I think, 24 different seasons.
Right. And you were the on-site doctor.
I played a goofy doctor, and I played myself on TV, so I'm a goofy doctor. You're about to see some of that goofiness now.
All right, let's see.
But this technique is called craniofacial release. And just to kind of give you a little rundown, as a physician, you got to love your athlete, you got to love your patient. Remember, a lot of times they're coming from an unloved situation, so as a physician, you got to love them. And the skull is made of 22 bones, and the sphenoid bone, which is in the center, is really what helps with respiration. So when you breathe, your skull moves, right? Parietal bones go like this, and things happen. And the turbinates need to be open so that you can breathe. So you actually breathe through the nose, you eat with the mouth. So if you're a mouth breather, you're in trouble. But what happens is that when
I am a mouth breather.
There you go. We got to talk.
You know, I get dry at night. I wake up with the most dry cotton mouth because
we'll go a little into that, and I'll tell you. Maybe I should ask your producer some of these other questions, but we'll see. But with this is happening is that when the skull is supposed to move, and when it doesn't move, the sutures stick. So now you're losing that ability for the skull to participate in respiration. So now when these fighters are hit, you get something called coup, which is a damage to the brain, where the brain hits the skull.
And swells.
And then the brain's moving, and it hits the back of the skull because it stops, and that's contra coup. So when you have to develop these head injuries, over time, the neurons stop communicating. And more and more and more. And that's called chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Every time your brain rattles.
Every time your brain rattles. So it was interesting stuff, man. And we could spend a whole podcast on how mushrooms, now cibosillic acids and stuff, are helping people with post-traumatic stress disorder and concussive blows to the head and TBI. But anyhow, I did this because I was concerned that the athletes weren't, maybe there was something I could do to help prevent it. So for a lot of years I was on there ballooning, breaking skulls, really getting their skull to move. Getting their turbinates going and getting the oxygen to the brain. Oxygen, your body uses oxygen to make something called adenosine triphosphate, which is ATP. It's energy. It's the actual fuel. So your body takes oxygen and uses this, right? So if you're getting more oxygen, you're most likely going to have more energy.
Right.
And there's so many things that happens when you're mouth breathing in regards to the neurology of your body that's bad. So we want to encourage them to be able to breathe through the nose so that they stop.
You're not doing this to me. All right, this is a little clip of you on the show. Play tape.
All right, guys, let's bring it over. I want to introduce you to Dr. Petrick so we can get this going. Dr. Petrick's coming in here to do the craniofacial release. Dr. Petrick's, I've used him in his craniofacial release. It's a ballooning in the nose, kind of opens the passages, gets more oxygen to the lung and the brain. It has so many health benefits to it.
The more oxygen that you can uptake, the more energy you're going to have, and the better you're going to be conditioning. So we're going to use an applicator, which is a blood pressure bulb. It has a balloon on it. We're going to insert it into each passage. We're going to inflate the balloon for about a millisecond. Then we're going to let it go, and then you're going to open up, and you're going to see the difference in the nasal passage. Obviously, you're putting a balloon in someone's nose, so it's not the most comfortable feeling. I would equate it to having water kind of splashed up into your nose in the pool.
Favors up first.
I'm going to have you scoot up a little bit more for me, okay?
Out of here, man. Come on.
Hey, you're next.
Get that good hair. Get out of here.
Scoot up a little bit more. Scoot your body up. Keep coming, keep coming. Good.
Oh, man. Oh.
Done. Good. This is it. Ready to go big mouth. Close. Good. Good. Don't move. Don't move. You're good.
Dude, I don't want to do that again.
Okay. That did not hurt. It didn't hurt. Did it hurt?
Knowing how bad it hurt, I knew I had to have Uriah go first. You know, if he saw a bunch of 170-pounders, kicking and screaming about the balloon up their nose and how painful it is, he wouldn't have done it. You got one done.
You ready?
Uriah sat back down and did the other nostril and was kicking his little feet, had his little hobbit feet just going. It was so funny.
Holy.
Good. That's it.
Oh, man, that hurts.
Good. Good. What are you afraid of? Nothing. Come on.
Craniofacial release. I felt that it expanded in my sinuses, so it's definitely something that I'm going to do again.
Now, what was worse, the build-up or the procedure?
Probably the build-up.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's what's so great about The Ultimate Fighter. You learn so much about yourself, mentally, physically, spiritually, and to be back for season 25 is an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing blessing.
I mean, from watching your videos to hearing you talk while we're watching the videos, I don't think intellect is going to be your shortcoming. I mean, this is super interesting stuff, and you're talking about how this could be related to other things besides fighting and athleticism. What were you saying?
Well, Down syndrome was one of the ones we were just referring. When a Down syndrome person is born, they're born with the expression where they have small nasal bones. They don't have control over the tongue. So if you see someone with Downs, typically the tongue is extruded.
And that's how we recognize, that kid has Down syndrome. Right. It's because of that tongue and the
so
small...
If you think about it, you breathe through the nose, and when they can't breathe through the nose due to small bones, their tongue is sticking into the airway. They can't latch on for breastfeeding, so they're undernourished. Not any problem with, not the mom's fault at all. It's just
they don't have control of
the frenulum. They can't suckle because
that's what I was getting. The frenulum.
Frenulum. They can't actually get them. So you have to cut those. We use ballooning with them, and we teach them to keep the tongue in, and we start to teach the cognitive learning responses.
So they still have Down syndrome, but they're able to function a lot better with the adjustments that you're able to make.
You're not aging us. But you remember what was it, Life Goes On with Corky?
Right.
He had a job, and he was functioning, and he's high level, and he could communicate with him, and the ones who speak out in Congress, and that's because somewhere along the lines, the amount of oxygen to their brain was enhanced, or it was not inhibited.
Right.
That's why they advanced. The ones that are when they're non-audible, they don't really function as well in society. Those are the ones we wish at a baby we could have ballooned them, and really made.
So they could have got more nourishment and been bigger, and gotten more oxygen, so they could be more functional.
Those Broca and Wernicke areas that the brain would develop, right? So it is impactful.
And how late can you do that? I mean, is that something you have to do it's a baby, or can a 13-year-old child come see you for this treatment, or even a 33-year-old?
It's never too late to get started. But like anything, when the child is at that very young age, at developmental, where their skull hasn't hardened completely, and you can get the skull to move, and you can cut it where they haven't formed words yet. When they start to talk with a certain tonality, it's because of how they're hearing it.
And then they build habits, which if you do it before they build these habits, of course, it's more effective.
So it's better. And I do this on anybody with traumatic brain injuries. We do this on a lot of people, and for snoring, TMJ, head pain, cluster headaches. I mean, nasty stuff. People are struggling, and they're struggling bad. I mean, I have patients that we do this on, and it gives them back their life, John. It's amazing. So,
I mean, these are things that I didn't even know about. I mean, something else that I did find out about is I remember you released a video about a year ago before you declared to even run for anything. You keep talking about love and this and that, and I mean, it's not lip service. You want to play the tape? This is him looking out for somebody else and another act of love.
I've been here a long time, and I'm an extroverted person. Anybody who knows me would probably say they're going to hear me before they see me. Hello, my name is Dr. Jon Petrick, and I am a Cleveland graduate of 1999. Early in the 90s, I was in a car accident, which left me with an upper cervical and a lumbar issue. My coworker suggested that I visit a doctor that she had worked for previously, and I went to him for approximately about 9 months. Within a very short period of time after seeing him, I started noticing that a lot of the physical problems that I was having started to go away. And after I had success with treatment with him, and I just said, I want to be that. That's exactly what I want to do. And now I'm extremely proud of being a chiropractor. I actually could not think of anything else on the planet that I should be doing. What motivates me the most is the success that I have with my patients. There's something special about being able to attach to another human being and know that you're rendering them relief from something that really was miserable. Outside necessarily just the profession itself, I'm most proud of my contribution to the community in which I live and serve. I started in 2008, 2009 with the City of Las Vegas, my own nonprofit called Keep It Simple, Make It Fun. We take people with various different disabilities, from Down syndrome to veterans in wheelchairs. We take them camping, canoeing, hiking, fishing. I have a 14-year-old daughter. That's my world. I have a roommate. I know that's kind of a unique statement, but in my nonprofit for people with disabilities, I had a friend who was had a traumatic brain injury. He was injured in a motorcycle accident. And one day, we're dropping him off at his home at the time. Mark reaches over to the door to get out of the truck. And when he does, his underwear band is split from his underwear. So he's got a hole in his underpants. And I say to him, "You need some new underwear." And he said, "Yeah, I know, but I don't have any money." And I said, What do you mean? You get Social Security, you get money, right? And he's like, "Yeah, but I don't see it." Goes into the home and I don't ever see it. Finding out that my friend I've been camping with for the last 2 years now is really struggling, and he has a terrible home life, and he's somewhat borderline neglect. My daughter had tears in her eyes and she's crying, and I say, "Honey, what if Marky came to live with us?" And she said, "Go get him, Daddy, go get him." Now Mark's been with us for the last 6 years of our lives. And he's more brother than roommate, so I hate to use that term, but that's really what it is. Someone once told me good doctors talk about their successes, and great doctors talk about their failures or challenges. I ran for Congress and lost. I was married and lost. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, "Man, I don't know what kind of a role model I am for my daughter. I seem to lose a lot more than I win." And he said, "You know what, John? You succeed in those failures." And he said, "Because you're living life and you're not sitting back on the sidelines, you're taking a shot. Don't let your mistakes be what defines you. Be that your starting point, and you push from that."
I mean, that's the third time I've seen that video. I mean, I just feel like, I feel humbled to even get to know you. I mean, you're just such a good dude, man. So smart, so compassionate, so personal. And then if you even talk about the other things that other people don't like about candidates, you're not exploiting your kids on your commercials. You don't go on every single thing. You seem to be very Christian, but you're not saying God sent me to do this. Like you seem to like really just be a real genuine, kind-hearted soul. I mean, it's really...
Thank you. That's nice. Authenticity. That's our currency. We have to be authentic or we'll lose. If we're not true to the character in who we are, then it's fake news.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm getting in trouble by my producer because we're going on almost an hour just with your bio. Some people want to know what you're running for and stuff. But I just wanted to show a couple of pictures of you, and you can just tell us about, what we're looking at. I got a couple of pictures when you were a kid and stuff like that. Let's see what we got here. And we'll finish up the bio with you just giving us a little story.
That's myself and my baby brother. Man, I think I'm like 5 or 6 years old right there, and that's that haircut.
Yeah, that's a 1979 special,
I was
right?
I done that today when I came in. I'm glad that I did it. But yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, right. And right there, those are some very, very important people in my life. The gentleman in the very front is my grandfather, Frank. His name was Frank DeQuesno Paisano.
Paisano,
he's a
what's
paisan.
up?
And then to the right of him on the screen is my ex-husband, or my ex-wife's, my ex-father-in-law, Bob. Wonderful, wonderful man. I learned a lot from him. The guy in the back to the left of my grandfather is my real father. That's Jack. He's a cowboy. And he has horses and stuff in Central Ohio. And then the gentleman on the left, far left, that's my stepfather. He's the Colonel of the Marine Corps. He was probably him and... I was blessed with 2 fathers, to be honest with you.
It looks like you got 4 fathers there.
You're right, yeah, 4 horsemen right there. But interesting in that, there's Mom in the middle, right there, and there's my brother and I, a little bit older. But the interesting thing is, John, I have a book out on Amazon right now. It's a 4-time bestseller. It's called Get Off Your Path.
I think we got a picture of that.
And I have another book that I'm calling, it's actually called The Colonel, the Cowboy, and the Queen.
So you're writing books too? Jesus.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more personal because I actually have a whole chapter dedicated to sauce, spaghetti sauce. In my life.
Oh, you're a real paisano.
Real paisano, because no matter what was happening in my life, My mother was that consummate true north, and it was the spaghetti sauce. Whether it was a happy day, a sad day, the sauce was always the same. It was our sauce,
Right.
it's for our family. So it was like if there was one thing that I hung on with tradition, it's that spaghetti sauce. So, but I share that because my real father was a good man. He gave us a lot. He gave us what we needed, and my stepfather turned us into gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you had a great support system.
We did. I did, man.
Is that it for the pictures, or we got a couple more? Oh, there you go.
There you go. There. I forgot that was in there. That's me. Actually, that's interesting. I was at 45 years old. I decided that I was going to be an amateur boxer. That's what the USA
You look like
boxer.
Rocky Marciano.
Did not fight like Rocky Marciano. I'm going to be honest.
Did you get your ass kicked?
I got my ass
Good
kicked
for
in that
you.
fight. I'm being honest.
Good for you.
But I will tell you this. My ex-wife, my ex-fiance, were both at that fight rooting for me. So there's more. I have testimonial to who I am, right? But it's funny because I lost this. The guy made the mistake of handing me the microphone, and I came off, and my ex-wife said, even though you got your bell rung, you were so gracious in the loss.
And I feel like great gratitude is what we're missing most.
Yes, man, I agree with you. Gratitude is being grateful.
People are so much complaining about what they don't have instead of appreciating what they do have. This is the gentleman from your video.
Mark and I. Yeah, that's Mark and I.
You bought him some underwear?
Yeah, we got him all suited up. He's got himself some underwear, and I'm his legal guardian and his power of attorney. So
he got into a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, he was man, interesting story. Half his skull. I'm glad we didn't show that. It's pretty nasty, but he has half his skull removed.
Remove that next picture.
Yeah.
No, I'm only kidding. We don't have it.
No, and anyhow, so he was in a coma. We got him out. We put him in the hyperbaric chamber, which is oxygen-filled tank, and put him under pressure. We did probably 30, 40 dives with that, and I balloon him. We got him back. We do lots of rehab work on him, and now you should see that he has like these little remote control cars. He could put these things together like you wouldn't believe him.
And he enjoys life.
He loves it. Yeah, he's family now.
That's, I mean,
He is a testimony to what true unconditional love can do for somebody. He blends in with the family. My mom treats him like a son. My brother Jeff treats him like a brother. My daughter treats him like an uncle. He's Uncle Marky in our home.
That's beautiful.
So it's a good life. We have a good life.
That's beautiful.
That's Daniel. This is actually on the Ask Dr. John show. That's Daniel. He has osteogenesis imperfecta. So that's Daniel. I think he's probably 17 years right there, and he is about 26 pounds. But I will tell you this. You will never see a person that has a bigger personality than that young man right there. He's going to college. He knows sports like you wouldn't believe. He's a coach. He's an incredible baseball coach. His size, stature, and disability don't stop him in the slightest. You can see him. The first time I met him, we went to his house, and he's sliding around because he can't walk, and he's literally sliding around on the floor, and he's got this little basketball hoop. And he schools me, and he's talking smack the whole time. Like, really? I can't get up, and I'm shooting on you. But the kid was just, I was like, almost like, man, this is terrible.
Man, this is some life you're living.
And it's a cool thing. Oh, this was a family. I dressed up as Santa, and this was a family. I was going to ask, can you find me in the picture?
I think I can.
This was a family. The Danny was actually the young kid I was just holding. He told me about a family that was hurting. Father lost a job, and and he just said, "Hey, we're trying to do something for him." And I said, "I got it. I got a Santa suit. We got a bunch of toys." And I said, let's just show them a Christmas that they are not expecting. So we went over there, and they were so gracious and kind. And we're talking. We had some iPads and scooters and the little razor things, and it's good. So
you're an amazing human.
That's on the Ask Dr. John show. That right there is interesting because I did an interview with the U.S. Institute Against Human Trafficking, which is one of my big things I hope to talk about on here because I want to let all your viewers know, please vote no on Joint Resolution 8, and I'll tell you why. But we had something happen in our family where trafficking and grooming and all of these things were occurring. I won't elaborate on it, but I said I needed to do this. So, Mike, all the questions I asked, I made my daughter write. So, how many people were abducted? What's the average, in industry? So she did all my cue cards for my question when I was interviewing these people on the show. So it was kind of killing two birds with one stone. I wanted to realize, and if you don't know, I mean, there are more people right now in slavery and being trafficked. Than
We
any
say
time
that
in
on the
history.
Johnny Brew Show
it's
all
terrible,
the time.
John, it's really, really bad. And I'm partnering. My companies were the first medical centers in Nevada to be traffic-free zones. I'm working with the Christine Marsh and her group for these women that are pregnant through trafficking and rape, so that they have the babies, and they've saved over 50,000 babies, John. And we're trying.
What don't you do? Jeez.
Oh, it's cool. So it's
It is
when
cool.
you're around great people, John. Honestly, it's the people that make it great. You know, I mean, the government's
Right.
a beautiful thing. I hear it all the time with politicians this, and I'm like, yeah, I agree, because our Constitution and our laws, they're not all perfect, but they are great.
Right.
And it's the people that make them bad.
Best
And
ever.
We're going to get that.
Not
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
Best ever,
Best
though.
ever.
There's a difference.
So there's some groups. Last night I went to dinner with a gentleman. He owns Bo's Boxing, which is on Spencer and Trop. And Steve's been there for 20-some years. We take these inner city kids, and I do the physicals for them, and we let them have. It's not about trying to find the next Floyd Mayweather.
Right. It's about getting some kids with their eye on the prize.
It's about those kids feeling that they're winning by competing.
Right.
They're not winning by winning. They're winning by competing.
Right.
And you want to take, because one of our big things on my campaign, John, is I call Go Local. And I push this out there into the Hispanic and Latino communities and all of our communities. Go local. You bank local. Your local banks invest most of their money into local projects. They're not into ESGs.
Right.
Right? You understand that, right?
ESG, and for those of you who don't know, ESG is an environmental and social credit rating, which they do believe will be part, if not all, of your social credit score or your economic score. So your ability to get a loan will depend on if your business is going to use electric cars or gas cars, or who and could it be who you voted for? Did you send $20 to the truckers? All these things could start getting factored into your ability to gain credit by these big five banks.
That's right. So you want to go to those local banks that do not support those accounts or those protocols.
And
okay?
that's hard though to find, because sometimes you go to some local bank and then you realize that they're backed by Wells Fargo or stuff like that. So how can people discover?
Just ask. Just ask. There's banks out there. There's wonderful banks in Nevada that actually they're not backed by big banks, and those are your community banks. But that's one thing.
Do you have some examples?
I think Bank of the West, Bank of Nevada, Nevada State Bank. I don't believe that they're backed by Wells Fargo. No, Nevada State Bank's probably the biggest of the three that I mentioned, but they're a Nevada bank.
Right.
They're not going to go with the ESGs, and you're going to ask them if you want to ask directly. A lot of the smaller banks don't even know about it, which is a good thing. But you want to get out there. But John, I talk about love local. There's nobody going to tell me that some rinky-dink politician with a bad attitude in Washington is going to take care of my neighborhood better than me.
Right.
That's my hood, John.
Right.
So it's like I tell people, you love local. You know your neighbors. Get out there in your neighbors. Protect local.
Right. And we believe in that, from our cops being the local community
That's
members.
my defend local. My thing is defend local. Defend your local police every year. And one of the reasons what I got into politics was every year my brother and I for 2 or 3 years we've had something called the Thin Blue Line. The first year we had like 500 police officers, and we had food for them, and we had some music. Last year, which was also my event that I announced me running, we had 2,300 people. We had marshals and SWAT, and we had Border Patrol, and we had Forrest Griffin announced me, and we had Sherelle Mendenhall.
We had a picture of you and Forrest.
Right.
I must not have sent it.
Well, it's we had some candidates that are running. We had comedians that came out. We had violinists that play rock music, bounce houses, 12 food trucks, and it was on a ranch called the McKee Ranch. It was right off of Robindale. Right. But that Thin Blue Line was for all first responders, because how did we go from October 1 being we love you to BLM, which, let me be very clear, I will never endorse any group, organization, or collection of people that by on their namesake alone is divisive. Right. Unlike my opponent, my potential opponent, right now is sitting there, the incumbent. I believe her and I to be divisive. And I'm a uniter. Right. I don't want to talk about Black Lives Matter. I want to talk about all lives matter. Right. I don't want to defund our police. I want to defend our police. And there are things that we could do, like we talked about the Constitution. I believe a lot of the problems that police have with the public is that they're given case law, not constitutional understanding.
Right.
They realize,
but they're making a vow, an oath to the Constitution, not to case law.
That's right. So I believe that they're uneducated. Not saying police officers are uneducated. I think they're improperly emphasized on the wrong
trained,
educational piece.
Right.
If they knew that, man, I'm here, this would be a better. But so I always talk about shop local. You know what? I hear this organic thing as a doctor. I want to bang my head against the wall because I'm like, where are you getting it from? When's the last time you went to your local farmer, local rancher, farmer's market that's probably more organic than what you're getting at the place at the store? It's just
right, at Trader Joe's or something, right?
You don't know if that's organic, so I trust it. I saw this awesome
Pull
meme.
it out the ground, you know it's organic.
I saw this awesome meme. This meme was a guy, he's in a hotel room, and he says, he's on the phone, he said, yes, can I get a wake-up call? And the woman on the other end of the phone says, yeah, the federal government doesn't give a shit about you. And it was I just thought that's perfect analogy. And I don't mean to cuss, but hey, but
if it's funny, we let it go.
Right. And as far as like, I teach people, love local, bank local, go local, defend local, protect local. If they're going to defund our police, then where's our neighborhood watch?
Yeah.
So if you're not going to run for office,
right,
start a neighborhood watch. Know your neighbors. So when we take back our communities and we take back our streets, we don't care about the federal government. And I'm going to promise you that what you see in my videos with me with various different people is real. Because when I took that oath to love them as a physician, I meant it.
Right.
And this oath I'm taking now when I'm serving in Carson City, I mean it just as much.
To the Constitution.
That's why I read it. That's right. That oath is to the Constitution, federal and state. So that's something that we need all of our candidates to pay attention to, that you got to do the work.
Right.
You can't
And you got to learn, right. You got to know what's going on. All right, let's get into a couple issues that I wanted to address with you. First of all, you're a doctor. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're more qualified than the idiot in his basement doing a podcast. COVID. I mean, what were your thoughts from the beginning? How have they evolved? Where can you give me an example of where you were wrong in the beginning and you've learned from that? I mean, because so many people are sticking to their guns. I thought homeless people and asthmatics would have lots of trouble in the beginning. I was proven wrong. A lot of the other things I've been proven right. At least it's still in my opinion I have been. Tell me about your evolution over the past 2 years and how you see it through a doctor's eyes.
One of my medical physicians that works with me worked for the Army. And when this started to happen, this was pre-2019, right, when that kind of things, it was in that November, December. He said, hey, I got a letter that says I can't prescribe certain things. And he said, do you know how many letters I've gotten after 25 years of working with the Army? And I said, no. He said, 0.
But then all of a sudden, in November and December of 2019, he's getting letters.
So now, role play a little bit. I'm in March. I have a medical center in Florida too, and I was with one of my consultants, and we're down there, and then they started shutting down the airports, and they're starting to go through this thing. So I'm calling Lee, going, Lee, what the hell's going on, man? What are they doing? And he's like, John, I don't know what any of this is about. They're claiming now that there's some leak in China, and I'm like, well, that's pretty far away. But he's like, no, we don't know what's going on. So,
and this is December, January.
Yes. Now we get into it. Now we're into March. On March 8th, I'm in Florida, and I have a really great executive team around me that's starting to do the research, and they're starting to get articles, and we're starting to look at this. So we knew that it was a COVID virus, and what people don't realize is that the things occur naturally in nature. There has to be a sequence and a pattern. So You could take an orange and you could take a lime and you can graft them together because they're genetically close. But you couldn't take a rock and stick it on an orange and say, hey, it's going to grow, right? So when they look at this particular COVID vaccine or virus, they realize that you had a chimpanzee-like HIV with a novel coronavirus, and they're attached. And that doesn't happen in nature.
Naturally,
so they knew that there was something up. So that was my first inclination.
And this is in March of 2020.
Something's not right. We started talking to some of the virologists around the world and friends of ours and other professions because, again, my professional sports background, I get to meet physicians in all kinds of
other virology, orthopedics, yada, yada, yada.
So you asked and I'm glad that you asked, you said, what was I wrong on? I was wrong on our American spirit.
That's depressing.
I got to be honest. I really didn't think that the mask thing would push because, in the videos you see me wearing a mask when I was doing the procedure in the video.
Right.
You know why I wear that? For fluid. I don't want to sweat. I don't want to spit into my patient, working on my patient. And I don't want any fluids, should there be an open procedure, to get into my mouth, my face, or in my eye.
Or vice versa.
So you wear a cloth mask to want to protect that.
Right.
I no time or any of those masks were ever... And
for
even on
airborne
the box,
viruses.
None, 0,
right. It's
absolutely.
for you literally spitting into an open wound.
So I had been saying that from the beginning because I knew nobody was going to wear them right. Two, the masks that they were putting out there, they were just basically lying to people, perpetuating a lie.
They're spit catchers.
Yes, that's it. And then you started to look at it when you started to go, wait a second. Why is everybody wanting 2 masks and 3 masks? Now it's like this is getting out of control, and everybody's just going down. And Johns Hopkins, this is nonpartisan. Johns Hopkins isn't partisan. Johns Hopkins just came out recently with a research that says the masks work 1.1% of the time, but there was some change in the validity of it because they don't know if people are wearing them right, but they don't work.
Right.
Masks have never worked for this. If you want to keep fluid out of your face, put on a mask.
And to that effect, I think since 1919 we've known that social distancing doesn't work.
No. And
which has been confirmed by Johns Hopkins just a month or so ago.
And here's the best part. If you want to stop herd immunity, separate people. That's what they did. So they separated us around the herd immunity. And now, if you want to jump into the vaccines, you have to look at it as, in order by definition for something to be a vaccine, it must have live or dead vaccine in it. This does not.
That's according to the old definition
Correct.
of vaccine. Just like racism and vaccine, these words have had their definitions changed.
Absolutely.
In the past 2 years.
Absolutely.
So that way they could say that what you're saying is fake news.
Yeah. Well, it isn't. I mean, you can go. What I say. People ask me like, "Well, hey, what about the vaccine? Why are you so against it?" And I'm like, "Look, I'm not against necessarily people saying the vaccine. I'm against telling people they have to. What I'm against is the fact that people use a very strawman kind of argument. We had the polio vaccine, and look what it did. And I'm like,
right,
well,
and
we studied it 100 years, John.
Right, and the polio vaccine was, first of all, the original definition of a vaccine. Number 2, after 5 years of having the polio vaccine, which was way more important for the population than the COVID vaccine, after 5 years, 48% of the population was vaccinated. They started mandating it 10 years after its inception because they finally had enough data to say, okay, this is safe enough, not totally safe, but it's safe enough. And then you still had the media critiquing the vaccine saying, well, what about abnormal effects? And we were able to have that discussion. And when we had that discussion out in the open, even the people who said the polio vaccine were dangerous, through that discussion, the population was able to make their own choice and say, I hear what you're saying, but I think it's safe enough for me. You know what I mean? And then the government was finally able to say it's safe enough to mandate it. And I would have no problem with mandating the COVID vaccine 10 years from now if we prove that you get the vaccine, you can't spread it or you can't catch it. And we've got 10 years of data to back that up, which is never going to happen, obviously, because it's already been debunked 18 months, 12 months later.
And Jacobson versus Massachusetts was the case that they're utilizing to kind of infiltrate our rights. That's a 1905 case. Teddy Roosevelt was president, and what they're doing is there was a pastor said, for religious reason, I'm not getting the vaccine, the smallpox vaccine. They said the Supreme Court came in and said, for that clause that's destroying us now, which is that for the greater good clause that's in the Constitution, which is the one piece of the Constitution I'd like to see changed. But because of that particular clause, the Supreme Court ruled that he had to pay a fine, like $5, $10. I forget exactly what it was, but that would be equivalent to a $160 fine. He didn't have to get it, but he had to pay a fine.
Right.
So you look at, there's already been somewhat of a precedence for these vaccines.
That's disgusting.
It is.
That doesn't sound right.
No, and here's the thing. When you look at the vaccines, they're messenger RNA, and people start to see what you're going to see in the future. And the biggest thing for me was, where's the treatment?
Right.
Why aren't we working on hustling treatment?
Right.
Monoclonal antibodies. They gave this is I have video of this. I won't show it because my mother would kill me. I videoed her sick, literally dry heaving in the toilet at 9 o'clock on a Friday morning. I went and got some monoclonal antibodies. I injected my mother. I had to go to do some work. I called my aunt who was staying with my mom to help her. I'm like, yo, Aunt Dom, what's up with mom? And she's like, oh, she just got to load 4 loads
she's
of
doing
laundry
the dishes.
and she's ironing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? When we had it, I was down for 2 weeks. My brother was down. My dad was down for 4 weeks.
Right, but the right treatment.
The right treatment. Why didn't they concentrate on treatment?
Right, and I don't know, the same thing. I went to Woodstock 99 and I had this rash from rubbing up against people. And I had this horrible situation. I went down to the doctor on the 3rd trip. They gave me a cortisone shot or something. It went away like that. And they're like, I'm like, why didn't you give me that the first time? They're like, oh, well, people come in and abuse. I've never had a hydrocortisone shot or a cortisone shot in my life. Why are you afraid of me? Like, why wouldn't you just give me the treatment that works the first time? Same with the monoclonal antibodies or I mentioned that people with asthma weren't getting COVID. I think it's because they're taking steroids on the daily.
Well, yeah, absolutely. If you were to look at it, some of the dextrosteroids that we give, and what people don't know is, think about it this way: a virus dries out the lung with the medication or the virus itself, and think of it creating these micro cracks that bacterial pneumonia can get in, and that's what's killing people.
And then with the remdesivir versus the Regeneron,
man, yeah, it is. We recommend. We have saved, my group. We've saved with a few of the doctors about 117 people. Through COVID, that we've actually could say, if we did not interject,
they probably would have died.
Yeah, they probably would have had a bad time. Of those, we've lost 3. 117, so about 3 people we lost, all went with remdesivir. And I'm not telling people, I'm not trying to go nuts and tell you if you had it, great, whatever.
Consult your own doctor.
Consult your own doctor. I'm just saying that these particular 3 cases, that person had this particular drug, they did not make it, and they were also all 3 admitted to the hospital. Now, we've had other people admitted to the hospitals and they came out fine, and we've had people on remdesivir and they've been fine, but the 3 people we've lost happen to coincidentally have that same drug. So, again, back on the vaccines. Remember, it's a messenger RNA, it's not a vaccine. And remember, you're free of litigation. When you call it a vaccine, you're free. There's no suits.
Right. So that's the thing, is they write these regulations and they write these, backstops where they can't get sued if it's a vaccine. But then they change the definition of vaccine. Does that change the definition of vaccine for when? Because isn't there a clause or an understanding that we take the words to be what they were originally intended to be? So if you have some sort of thing that frees pharmaceutical companies from liability because of vaccines being necessary, doesn't that only apply to vaccines from the original definition of the word vaccine?
Oh, John, that's a great. Who knows?
I mean, I know I'm digging a hole, and we're trying to undo this spider web.
I don't think anybody knows. I think that if you were to probably ask 3 or 4 different people, they're going to give you the hoopla. They're going to say, I'm not sure.
All right, let's move on, because we're going to go on for 3 hours. How about, I saw with the Canadian truckers, you've been voicing your support for the Canadian truckers, and then recently, over the past few days, I see you pushing something for the U.S. convoy, and that we're going to have our own Canadian truckers movement. First of all, your opinion on the Canadian truckers. I've been saying that I truly believe the Canadian truckers are the ones who got us to lift the mask mandate in Nevada, as well as Maryland, South Carolina, New Jersey, California. All these mask mandates got lifted over the past 3 weeks while the Canadian truckers are doing their thing. Personally, I think that was thanks to them, or largely in thanks to them. And then also, do you think, what's going on in Canada? They're doing arrests now. They're trampling people with the horses. They're arresting. I saw an 80-year-old guy getting let off in handcuffs who was just walking around. Give me your synopsis as quickly as possible. But with the Canadian truckers, they're the reaction to the Canadian truckers and what's going to happen here in America over the next couple of weeks.
Well, thank you to the Canadian truckers for having the cojones to stand up to tyranny. And I never would have thought, again, you asked me what I was wrong on, I never thought we'd get leadership in that particular type of machismo coming from the North. I didn't. I thought America would be that shining beacon of solidarity and light, and the Canadians beat us to it. Can't get it back.
Right.
Second, what you're seeing up there is absolute. It is an abominable. It is what is every Canadian should actually be outraged at what you're seeing. When you saw the looting and the garbage that went on in America with the riots and the BLM garbage, and you saw them breaking stores and looting and stealing and cheating and doing all of these things, and these truckers are simply peacefully creating a movement of saying, hey, we're no longer going to take it. So for me, seeing what happened in Canada,
Trudeau kneeling with BLM.
Oh my God, it's just disgusting. They're cowards. He's an absolute coward. His dad's Fidel Castro, I hear. Just throwing that out there.
Unconfirmed. That is
unconfirmed.
not necessarily the
It's okay. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that when the American convoy was summoned, someone came to me and said, look, we need some drop-off spots. We're struggling with this. And I said, I'm in. Get in anything I can do to push peaceful protests under that First Amendment that we want to talk about. If we want people to rise up and tell, no, we're no longer going to take it. I'm a little bit nervous because I think this is what they wanted in order for them to bring in the National Guard and a thing against
Right.
use
Well,
that.
I mean,
So it
they're
does scare me a
using
little
the
bit.
military or the National Guard or the police force. They're freezing bank accounts. They're freezing cryptocurrency now because they're not able to regulate it. And, you know, I mean, you see what's going on in Australia, where the guns have been taken and people have been on lockdown now for 2 years. You look at what's happening in Canada, you got a bunch of truckers, I mean, literally peacefully protesting, and they're getting rounded up and their money's being taken and they're being fined $100,000 or something crazy. And America seems to be following in these footsteps as opposed to waking up from what's going on around the world.
That's a narrative that's being told. Americans truly believe. Remember, they believed in the masks. They believe in the vaccines. They sheepishly walked right off that cliff, and it's now you can't get them back.
Right, we have students in Reno protesting to bring back mask mandates. For the first time in history, we have students protesting for more tyranny.
Yeah, it doesn't. Again, we're in bizarre.
Neil Young is, you know, like it's just so crazy that when you hear Neil Young like buying into the FBI narrative. What's going to happen next? Zach De La Roca is going to be Biden's vice president? You know, it just doesn't compute. All right, so your big four platform. All right, number one, you want to talk about education. That's one thing we haven't even touched upon yet, and that's usually the focus of the Johnny Brew Show.
I want to add a piece to that. And
Go
I want
ahead.
to start out with, and I want to point out again because words matter. Article 1, Section 24 of the Nevada Constitution. Right now, the Democratic Party has already passed legislation in the House and in the Senate to include words in Article 1, Section 24 called sexual orientation, expression, and identification. Now, because words matter, in that same definition, in that same section of the Constitution, the word equality appears, John, which is from the Greek word which means logos, which means to think and to speak. So any human being that can think and speak is provided equality, the same exact rights and the same level of equality under our Constitution. Why? What's the nefarious intent that they would want to change it and add those three specific terms
Right.
that don't need to be added? They're following a map like they did in California, and that's not a pun. A map. What they're trying to do is eventually they're going to add words like minor attracted persons.
Right.
They're attacking our Constitution and they're trying to make pedophilia legal, and they're trying to do it legislatively. If you're listening to the sound of my voice, I beg you and implore you, do not vote for Joint Resolution number 8 to change our Constitution. It does not need to be changed. It's common sense. The word
And is this going to be on the ballot?
This is on the ballot. It's Joint Resolution 8. Do not vote for it. It's evil. They're coming for your kids. And a child saved is a child not sold. Do not let this happen. Now, Arizona House bill on their federal side, down in Arizona, they passed a bill that's 2889, Arizona House Bill 2889, that if you're looking at porn and there's a child in porn and that child is being hurt in any regard, you're getting 17 years in prison without the possibility of parole. And if you're the person in the film or you're trafficking or hurting a child, you're going to jail for what's known as natural life. Amen to Arizona. I would rather have this state become more like Arizona, protecting our children, than heading up like California, the land of the fruits and nuts, and what they're trying to do to us
To protect
and they're
predators.
protect our children. Now let's talk about education and CRT. For me, that is the most silly thing I've ever heard. We rank 48th to 49th in education. We have our science is bad, English is bad, technology is bad, math is bad, and you want to bring up something like critical race theory that is divisive on its name front? I'm sorry, I'm not in favor of it. It's a very stupid argument. It makes no sense. I would tell you, why don't we wait until we're in the top 5 and then let's start to bring in other ways of educating our children. With the attention span of this youth, why are we? I'll tell my daughter about sex. I'll tell my daughter about drugs. I'll tell my daughter what it's like to have character. I don't need some teacher trying to tell me how to raise my kid.
Right. Teach them Algebra 2.
That's
Please.
right. Please. That's all that I'd like for you to teach them. Teach them. And how about manners?
Right.
If you want to look at education, if you really want, we have awesome teachers here. And there's programs out there, if it was up to me, I'd say, let's get rid of some of this middle management, of these vice principals and this administration. And if you got rid of some of the admin, you could add one teacher in every subject in every school. But we're middle management heavy. Give parents a choice. Why? You know what the best outcomes of every student is when parents are involved. Those schools should be responsible or at least require at some point to get those parents involved. And when parents pay, John, they want to know where that money's being spent, so they're more likely to ask Tommy and Cindy how are their grades because they're spending money.
Right.
But there's a lot of things we can do in
In 2017, we had or 18, we had the restorative justice passed by the Assembly, which basically handcuffed schools in order to get rid of their biggest problem children, close the behavior schools, and it was more about equity than equal opportunity. I mean, I think that's the number one thing that could help our schools, and in Assembly, you would have the power to try to do that.
I care about the student. I care about Nevada, and I want to make it better.
He even says Nevada, right?
Right?
He's so dreamy.
I want you to remember too that, and I want to be very clear to everybody out there. I'm not coming here to do this myself. We need leadership. After we take back the House and the Senate and the governor's race, after we do that, then what? We need to get together. We all need to sit down and come up with a plan. I'll work with anybody who respects the Constitution, respects people's rights. Yep. How do we fix this? It's not going to just be bloviating on the campaign trail. Yep. We need plans. We need business people who understand how to execute plans. We got to work on spending. Everybody's talking about taxes. I'm like, forget taxes.
Right.
Let's talk about spending. If you want to fix the problem, we don't have a revenue
CCSD,
problem.
right. They get plenty of money. They're spending it bad. Right.
Plenty of money.
And then this kind of ties in when you go over to healthcare. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you are a teacher with THT, which they're getting dropped from all of their doctors, or if you're somebody who has great health insurance. It's such a nightmare to get referrals and find a specialist and do this, that, the other thing. You were talking about, obviously you're a doctor. What is your biggest gripes with healthcare, and what can a Nevada assemblyman do to help that?
I think you start off with putting people and allowing them to have accountability. You can do a tax credit. You can actually, where it's credit comes out of the general fund and doesn't necessarily affect too much. The tax credit. People spend thousands of dollars on supplements, gym memberships, yoga studios, martial arts studios, boxing gyms. Give them a credit. They're trying to keep out of the healthcare system, so give them some love back.
An incentive to get some exercise.
Give them an incentive to stay healthy. That's the first one. Incentivize. Second, offer opportunities so that healthcare is not inconvenient. Telehealth. Almost 80% of the visits that we have out there right now can be done over the phone with your physician. He doesn't need to see you, but he can through Zoom or one of these other platforms.
Right.
Telehealth. How about
I got swollen glands. Can you send a prescription? Can you send me a prescription?
You don't need to go in.
Right.
Think about the time it takes to you spend 40 minutes in your car getting to your physician, to wait in the waiting room, to a cold waiting room. Maybe it's mistreated. I'm sure they're not luxurious, right? To only go back into the room, to be put in a gown, to have the doctor to come in, to turn his back to you, to type in his notes for 7 minutes.
And ask you the questions off a Google form.
He cares. You're the number one relationship that you should have next to your spouse and your priest or pastor should be with your doctor.
Right.
So,
and like you say, when you go to these appointments, they do turn their back on you and they just ask you questions over their shoulder.
Because the insurance model is perpetrated on profit. And how can you possibly
click a box, you get this prescription, right. And they're treating the symptoms. They're not looking at the disease, right?
We're vehemently opposed to any particular type of healthcare like that. You have to love your patient.
Whole body.
You got to know them, and you got to identify. Sometimes there's something called psychosomatic. Sometimes people are dealing with emotional things that lead to physical things.
Well, then that leads me to the story of people dying by themselves because visitors aren't allowed at the old age homes or in the hospitals. I think that is catastrophic. I remember my dad died 6 years ago, and one of the most comforting things that I had is I know he was holding my sister's hand as he died. That just gives me a lot more comfort. Nobody's had that for the past 2 years. I hear people talking all the time. They can't even visit their mom at the nursing home. Yeah. And these people are dying of a broken heart.
Absolutely. You look at the rates, look at the death rates in normal conditions, and it's sad. Again, people always ask me, are these systems broken? And I said, it depends upon who you ask. If you want to take over the United States and you don't want to fire a bullet,
then things are going good.
And you dummy down the society. Now we got a 42% adult illiteracy rate. You don't allow them to trust the information because you feed them BS information. So now they don't know who to trust, and now they're lacking trust. You tell a 17% of the population that you're oppressed. And you get convinced the other 34% of the population to go along with that oppression that doesn't exist. Now where are we at?
Right.
Now we're into this negative narrative that we have, but that's not my campaign. Right. My campaign is about positivity. The first thing we talk about, profitability, productivity, and positivity. We have to stay positive. There's too much negative that we're focusing on.
And then you also talk a lot about the economy.
Well, if you look at it, is that I like to diversify where our taxes are coming from. We have to address the fact that we're losing big corporations because we're not setting up good business forms.
Well, who wants to move their company to a county that has a 4% literacy rate or a 13% literacy rate?
That's what Tesla said. There's not enough smart people in Nevada. I'm not necessarily agree with them.
Well, we have the least, our students in Nevada are the least likely in the United States to become a doctor.
Correct. Absolutely. And now you want to talk to me about CRT? You see how
we also have the least amount of doctors per capita.
Our STEM cell, we're ranked 49th in STEM, science, math, engineering, and technology. Why? Because we're not
SMET. Yeah. Not STEM, SMET, science. What did you say? Yeah, I know. I'm teasing.
Technology, education, and math. There you go.
And then election integrity is something else that you've been speaking a lot about. I mean, ballot harvesting, mail-out ballots. Are you concerned that you could even win an election under these circumstances?
You got to try first and foremost, and you're worth it. The people in my district are worth it. Somebody's got to fight for them. And
where is your district? Now you're in District 21. Henderson I looked on the map. Henderson, is that more like towards the M and central Vegas? Western Henderson?
East of the M, kind of like Bermuda, Pyle,
St. Rose
Parkway is my district, over to Valle Verde, over to up to Sunset. But the most important thing is that, again, it's not just me, John. We have to have good candidates. Like you said, we're got 20 candidates shy. We need one of the good Republicans out there. If you're listening to the sound of my voice, step up. When tyrants, it's so important. When patriots stand, tyrants fall. We have to remember that. So we have to stand up together. If you're afraid, don't be afraid, because the evil wins when good men do
when
nothing.
Righteous people do not speak.
No, you got to step up. So, and again, a coalition team, and there's a lot of wonderful candidates that are running, and I try to support. You have to.
Who are some candidates you like? I mean, a lot of politicians come on the show. They're afraid to say names. They're afraid to truly take one side of an issue. You don't seem to be that guy. Are there any candidates that you have been working with or listening to speak that really strike a tone with you?
There are a few. And it
not your endorsements, just people that you agree with their message.
I haven't met too many Republican candidates this round that I don't really align with. I'm going to be straight up. Now, there are some out there that we don't share the same fundamental understanding of how it should be done. Yeah. Sherelle Mendenhall, who we had on the show, that girl is working hard. And you know what? She's putting effort. You see her posting. You see her doing it. She's speaking up. So I credit her. She's got a heck of a race ahead of her.
I mean, she's got Adam Laxalt and Sam Brown. I mean, these are a couple of heavyweights.
Manny Kess running for treasurer. Here's a guy who was in the kind of casino industry. He raised more money for the Secretary of Treasurer or our state treasurer than anybody ever. He's running hard. There's Noah Malgiri.
He's going to be on the show next month.
He's a good candidate. I mean, again, I'm
but he's running against a bunch of tough cookies.
He's got some people too. So it's sad because that's how it is. You get a lot of good candidates. we'll never run a negative ad.
I mean, but what about some of these other guys? I know you don't want to talk ill. I guess you follow the Reagan rule, but you got some people that are less approachable, whether you're talking about like a Joe Lombardo or a Dean Heller or an Adam Laxalt. It feels like they're like above this grassroots effort, but people seem to think they're more electable.
They just they have a history, and when you look at the history of campaigns, it's marketing. Joe Lombardo with October 1 was in the household of every single human being in our country, pretty much. Every time he spoke, that man had name recognition. You now have Joey Gilbert and the Michelle Fioris. Michelle Fioris, I mean, here's a woman that's been in she's tough. Michelle's a tough. I like to call, if I had to describe Michelle Fiori, I'd say she's tougher than a $2 steak. She's a tough cookie. I mean, she cares about things. People love her, hate her, people whatever it is. People love this person, hate that. That's one of the things I just want to say is I don't get involved in the Nevada politics.
But I respect Michelle just like I respect you for actually saying how you feel.
Anybody who wants to run, I respect them. You have to give some respect. Whether you like them or not, you got to still respect the fact that they're willing to throw their hat. Listen, like Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they're punched in the face.
Yes.
And sometimes you got to be punched in the face to know you're in a battle.
Right.
So any of these candidates out there, I'm not necessarily throwing my endorsement anyway or anywhere, but what I am saying is that if you're a constitutionalist, if you don't want to violate a right, and I'm asked this, John, they say, Dr. Petrick, if you were elected, how would you determine what bills you're going to vote on? I'm like, this is easy. You can do this with me. You simply take that bill, you hold it up to the light of the Constitution, and if that light shines through, it's a good bill. Yeah. If light doesn't shine through because it's taking rights, Petrick isn't voting for it. Hold me to it.
Right, that's what's happening. I mean, that's what I envisioned government's supposed to be. We're running out of time. I'm sorry. You were just too interesting. So I got a couple of questions from some viewers. Number one is, how do you plan on raising money for this race, which obviously you're going to be going up against an incumbent who's already got, a lot more money than you do?
Well, first and foremost, we have more. So she had $85,000 on hand based upon her numbers. We had $105 that we raised before we filed by the end of the year. We were hoping to probably bring in another $150,000 this year. I have an incredible team of people around me, but I'm on the phones 6-7 hours every single week asking people for help. Small donors. You start to get the one, like I have these influencers, my professional athlete influencers. Wait till I start tapping into where they got 1 million followers, and I'm going to ask $1 from each of their followers.
Right.
So we start getting $1 million a month.
Right.
You have to run a campaign like a business. You can't spend more than what you bring in. You got to be frugal. You got to put the best people on the best task, and you have to raise money. And you can't be afraid to be on the phone and asking people, how much does your future matter to you, because it matters this much to me.
And you've got quite the network to raise from.
I put several $thousands into my campaign, which I knew I needed
Seed
to do.
money?
You betcha. Yeah, absolutely. You do it right. So as far as I'm concerned, as far as raising the money is just the show. What's really is that's
how
for
you
the
spend
dough.
it.
It's right. How you spend it's
kind of
for the
like
dough.
I keep saying about CCSD.
We're going to walk. I will tell you this. Anybody listening wants to jump into this Assembly District 21, you will not outwalk me. You will not outwork me. Because they're not going to meet this type of passion, this type of intensity doesn't just fall from a tree.
Right, this is your life.
This is who I am. I'm retiring from medicine to represent the people of Nevada as long as they'll have me. So that's kind of what we're pushing. So our campaign is organized. You're going to see we have TAMS doing our websites, TAMS, Men's Journal, Porsche. We have major people doing our stuff. We have a legitimate campaign. I welcome all challengers, but come ready to battle. But we won't be negative. Please know we're not going to do any negative campaigns. If anybody's out there wanting to know, I'm sick of it. I'm sure you're all sick of it. We can be positive. And what I've learned studying 360 hours, when you're confident and comfortable in the message, you don't got to scream.
When you're always telling the truth, you don't have to keep your story straight. Right. Have you signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge? Is what somebody wants to know.
I have.
So yes, you've promised not to raise taxes. Is that what that is precisely?
We have to address spending. It's that simple. Previous Republican legislation actually voted for some of the highest tax increases in our history of our state. That will not happen on my watch. There will be not one piece of legislation that's going to be voted on until we address spending. Taxes cannot be even discussed.
Do you have any endorsements?
We got some of the chambers that are out there. Obviously, the Siegel Group is one of them. Sig Rogage is out there. Some of the Latino chambers, the Latino Chamber. We got Forrest Griffin, the UFC. We got some of the bigger ones. I got a whole slew going to be coming out. You'll see. And we're starting to meet with more groups, NPRI and some of these groups. If you're a patriotic group out there and you're wanting, I'm going to sit down with Log Cabin Republicans. Right. I'm going to sit down with some of these bigger groups.
Get the message out. Feel like, for example, we had Alan Bigelow, who's also running for Assembly last week, but he's going to be in a primary race with Victoria Seaman. I kind of feel like you're more setting up for a November race. It looks like, are there any other Republicans running in this district, or are you feeling pretty safe about the primary and you're going to be concentrating on the general?
Safe's not the word. Confident is better. And as far as I don't pay attention to who's running. I have my race to campaign on. I have my constituents. Whoever they bring in front of me,
But the reason I ask is because I feel like Alan's going to have to blow his wad in May in order to win the primary, where I'm thinking that you might want to save a lot of your money because you are confident that you're going to make it to the general.
It is confident that I believe in the people around me. No one has actually come forward yet. We threw up a big number as far as raising money.
Yeah, I didn't know, and I'm sorry.
When they see what we are coming out with on our digital, our ads, our billboards, when they see this, they're going to be like,
your pretty face is going to be on the 15?
Everywhere. You're going to, I mean, hey, it's not, you know what? My mom's like,
those pretty blue eyes.
Your face everywhere? Right. Like, yeah, come on, Mom. But,
you're my mom.
Right. So, but why I'm saying that is that because I have clinics in the country and I have national brands, my team knows how to push out the marketing and how to push out the positive message. You're going to find, again, Petrick's authenticity is my currency.
When people have such good name recognition and they've got such successful practices and such a nice resume, they tend to run out of their league. Thank you for running down Ticket. What made you decide to run down Ticket as opposed to state senator or even Congress or something like that?
For me, let me be very clear. For me, I needed to be humble. And I'm not saying running for one of those races is not. I don't care about Washington, D.C. I care about Nevada. I wanted to represent a small group of people, do the best job that they've ever had, and then grow up the ladder. I want to do a good job from the constituents. You can be loved or feared. I want to be loved. Right. I want them to be like, man, we got this assemblyman. This guy is in my kitchen. He's everywhere.
He's at the Albertsons. He's at the post office.
Golf. I mean, I know all the businesses in my district. We're going to hit them and find out what we can do to improve their lives, how I can get other businesses to get employment, how we can improve our schools. During COVID, we said, look, I vehemently oppose the vaccine mandates and masks, but I'll do free testing for any school or any church, right. Any business that wants to stay open, they want to offer testing. Call me, call my group. We'll help you. We'll get you programmed somewhere so your people can feel safe so you can keep your doors open. So it really comes down to, at some particular point, my entire life, every success and every failure, everything that I've been blessed with and am grateful for has come down to this moment. This is my time. I'm coming here. I could do it. I want to do this like Braveheart. Well, someone just asked a funny little thing. Someone said to me, Dr. Petrick, tell me the difference between yourself and your opponent. Assuming that it would be a female, but we'll just say, the biggest difference for my opponent and I is that she has forgotten her God-given right for something better. And she thinks that people out of Nevada are here for her position. And I believe her position is to give the people of Nevada freedom. And I'm going to Carson City to see that they get it.
Is that Scottish or Irish?
I don't know. How was that? Was that good?
That was really good. You sound like that guy. What was that show? The new show. It's about the streets of New York, but it's an Irish gang. I forget the name of it.
That's just fun. I'm just having fun with that.
And good. And the last question I'm going to ask you is, if you were able to win your election, what would be the first piece of legislation you'd like to promote? What do you think is the most pressing need?
Article 1, Section 24, that joint resolution. They're coming for our kids. I can't think of anything more nonpartisan, more important, whether you're a grandmother, a brother, or sister. People have kids. You got to protect the children. That's going to be one of my biggest issues. This trafficking issue is out of control. It's a $175 billion annual industry. It's got to get rid of the buyers. So I'm pushing hard for that. I am going to really talk about the stuff what we can do with the voting. There's a lot of things we can do in healthcare. There's a lot of things we can do in economy. Again, with the spending and stuff like that. So I want to be very clear, and that's a good question, but when I sit down with the leadership in the Republican Party, it's what we will do. It isn't about what I'm going to do. If we don't have leadership from start to finish, from top to bottom, we're going to struggle. We have to have
one
leadership.
of the things that people loved about Annie Black, for instance, is that she didn't necessarily wait for the party's permission. She just spoke her mind and she did what she said she was, she fought for what she believed her people wanted most. So, I mean, are you going to really try to build up a coalition, or are you just going to stand up for what you believe in? Or try to,
No, first, I'm always going to stand for what I believe in, and that is truth, and that is integrity. And under no circumstance am I going to perpetuate a lie. I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. If you're a liar, you're going down on my watch. What I believe we need a Conor McGregor of the legislature. I hope to be that kind of disruptor that says, no, it's no longer about status quo.
And that's why I asked.
Yeah, no, we don't back down. Like I said, I had a father that's a cowboy, a mother that was a 5-foot Italian. I have thick skin. Bring it. It's time we take back. Taking back a state and taking back a country. It's not easy.
Especially when we've been losing it slowly for 25 years.
We have to fight. join us. Join the fight.
Well, go ahead. Talk to the people. You get 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Tell everybody where you're running, why you're running, why they should vote for you. The floor is yours.
My name is Dr. Jon Petrick. I am running for Assembly District 21 in the Henderson area. I'm running because your children matter, my children matter, our economy matters, our country matters, and most importantly, the state of Nevada matters. It is absolutely a critical time in our country, and it's a critical time in our state that we have to do what is right, what is truthful, and what is honest. And we haven't seen that in the last several months, and especially under this current legislation. We can do better for ourselves and for the future of our state. Basically, that's kind of it. Dr. Jon Petrick, Assembly District 21. Thank you for your support.
And where can they find out more? What's your website? Do you have a phone number?
Yep. You can call me anytime. I got a public line. Please reach out to me, 702-300-8008. And my website is drjon4 nevada.com. That's Dr. Jon for nevada.com. Please check it out. I need your help. We need your support. Together, we can take back our state and we can make this a beautiful, wonderful, clean, happy place to live.
Well, beautiful. I mean, your story is phenomenal. I mean, we went way over time because it was so interesting, and I have a feeling the viewers are going to love it. Guys, this is Red Wave Nevada 22, and we're going to continue to have all the best candidates running that are constitutional conservatives. I hope you saw last night's episode with gubernatorial candidate Guy Nora. Another great episode. Guys, I need you to hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell, so every week you're finding out about who we're interviewing, who we're talking to, what we're talking about as we continue down this path. Another thing, this is brought to you by Infinity, the Math Institute. Don't get more math problems, get solutions. They are located at themathinstitute.com, or just look up Facebook, look up The Johnny Brew Show, thejohnnybrewshow.com. Call us, text us, 702-501-5304. Spotify, Google Podcast, Rumble, you name it, YouTube, we're on it. Thank you so much to Jon Petrick for joining us, Dr. Jon Petrick. And we're looking forward to seeing you next time on The Johnny Brew Show.
Thank you.